Good morning. Do you ever find yourself mirroring other people for validation? I sometimes have done this. I actually did this a lot in my young adulthood. And as I've gotten older, especially through my 30s and now into my 40s, I find myself mirroring less and being more my true self in a lot of ways. And that's what we're going to be talking about today on Boldly Driven Conversations with Bree. So join me for this. All right. So, mirroring. What is it? What is mirroring? And why is it both a beautiful thing and it can be a good thing and also can be a very dangerous thing? So mirroring really is that subconscious imitation of somebody else's gestures, of the way that they hold themselves, the tonality of their voice, their speech patterns, and even like their attitude. We see this in children often when they see like a celebrity or a person of authority that they admire. They will then start to pick up some of the vernacular and some of the same things that that person does, which is why so often as parents, we have to be very careful of what the influences are on our children and what they're watching and who they're seeing. A really funny thing that has happened is, I don't know how many of you know the show Peppa Pig, but it is about this little cartoon pig named Peppa, who is based in the UK, and she speaks with an accent, a UK accent. And they found that young children who were watching Peppa Pig, if they watched her excessively and that they really admired her and loved her, that they were actually starting to get an English accent because they just start to naturally. Mirroring is such a natural thing, especially for children, to do, because it's how we learn and how we grow and how we it's a system in which it's subconscious. It's this way we learn and grow and don't really have awareness oftentimes that we're doing it. It's a very natural human behavior. And so what this does is it allows us to grow and develop and learn, especially for children. And as adults, we learn and grow from this as well. It's just this natural part of human development. It's often, again, like I said, done in early childhood, in infants, toddlers. But as we grow older, mirroring also continues to play a role in our learning. Because we learn new skills. This is how we learn new skills. This is how we learn, what we want to be as young adults, what we want to emulate as young adults. And it can be a healthy thing. It can be something that can be beneficial. Here are some of the benefits of mirroring for when we're talking about growth and learning and changing, is that this helps us build rapport. So it helps us establish a sense of connection and rapport with other people. If someone has an accent, sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I will accidentally pick up their accent. I did this a lot when I first went away to school, when I first went to Ohio State. I was from the north, from Cleveland area, and we have our own little nasally accent in the Northeast Midwest area, Northeast in the Midwest, I guess you could say. Cleveland specifically, we have like this nasally kind of sound. My parents grew up in New York, upstate New York, and so they say words differently, and so I grew up speaking like them with that Cleveland accent. But when I went to Ohio State, which was in Columbus, which is mid-state of Ohio, there were a lot of people who were from Southern Ohio that also went there, and they had a very slight Southern accent, a very slight Appalachia type accent. And there was one girl in particular, her name was Rebecca. We would hang out, and I realized that I started picking up just a couple little words that I would say that I started picking up that were Southern sounding, and I didn't even realize I was doing it, and it was like emulating her. And I think at one point she was almost a little offended by it, and I had to really back off from it and become more aware of it because it was something that I didn't realize. And again, I've moved down south. I live in Tennessee, and there are now words that I tend to say. I say y'all now. I never used to say that. Just you build this rapport with people. You pick up things to build that rapport, and it's totally subconscious. Like, you're not doing it on purpose, but this makes you feel more accepted. And oftentimes people will accept you more because they recognize something in you that is them as well. So mirroring can be good for building rapport. It's also great for empathy. When we mimic someone, we're not doing it to make fun. When we just do it very naturally, when we mimic their behavior, this makes it so that we can better understand their perspective and experiences as well when we're mimicking. There's just this natural understanding when we start to pick things up. I used to not understand the Southern way of life like at all. Everything was so slow. I was from the Northeast. I grew up with parents from very much the Northeast. Everything is fast. We do things quickly. And moving down here, that was one of the things that was such a huge adjustment for me, is that I had to learn that people are just slower down here. They just are much more relaxed in many ways. And I still get completely frustrated with it. I'm not going to lie. But there's a learning curve there. But it gives me more empathy now because I understand it. I get it. It's a way of life. And it's not bad or wrong. It's just different. And it's created more empathy in me for people that I didn't understand before, and a way of life that I did not understand. It also creates social bonding. When we are mirroring, it's a fundamental aspect of human social interactions. So it helps us to connect with others in a deeper level. Again, it's that forming stronger bonds of recognizing something in you that someone recognizes in themselves, and vice versa. So, and it's great for our learning and development. Like I said, when we mirror, mirroring is a crucial role in our learning. It particularly in early childhood, and it helps us acquire new skills. So like if there's a coworker of ours who has a certain skill or talent, and it's something we need to learn for our job, then we will mirror what they're doing to try to emulate it, to try to learn this new skill. So it can be great. And same for communication. Communication can be improved and can be helped by us communicating in a way that another person communicates. So for speaking, like I like to do speaking. I have spoken on stages. This is something that I hope to do more often. I listen to other speakers and how they communicate, and I try to emulate that. I mirror it. I try to learn from it, so that I can become a better communicator. This is also true for writers. When we read certain writers, and when we read certain kinds of books, certain things, we will start to communicate like that person because we're mirroring the way that they communicate. So what are some of the negative things that are unhealthy when we're mirroring? Because obviously with every good, there's always a bad or a negative to a positive, right? So oftentimes what can happen when we're mirroring is that we can do excessive imitation. And this is when you are constantly mimicking, or someone else is constantly mimicking you, your gestures, your speech, your mannerisms, to the point of being obsessive. And it then becomes like a mental disorder. It can be very scary, and it can be a huge sign of unhealthy mirroring. Another thing is manipulation can happen with excessive mirroring. So if someone is consistently mirroring us, it may feel disingenuous or controlling, and this could be a red flag. This is something that I have noticed with women sometimes is I will start doing something, and then I've noticed with a few people in my life that they started doing the exact same thing. The way I dress, the way I do makeup, hair, the way I speak, the mannerisms in which I live my life, phrases that I say. So it became to the point where someone was doing this, and it was manipulation, not just of me, but of other people, because they saw that there was something that people liked about me. And so they started emulating that. They started mirroring those things. And it really was manipulation because they wanted to be accepted too. Instead of being accepted as themselves, as how they are, they use it as a manipulation tactic to try to get something that they wanted. And that can be unhealthy when we use it as manipulation for whatever it is, whether it's, a celebrity or our boss or someone that we admire, and we want to be more like. We can use it as manipulation. It can be an unhealthy manipulation tool. And then what leads into that is what I've already mentioned, is there's a lack of authenticity. When you are trying to be like someone else instead of yourself, when you're trying to emulate a certain mannerism or speech or just even a thought pattern that someone else has, this is a lack of being ourselves. When we start mirroring someone, it will become a habit, and when we do it excessively. And this can lead to the loss of authenticity of who we are. So if you're trying to adapt yourself to someone else to fit the expectation of others, this is where you lose your true self. And I know this because I've done it. I've totally done it. I've lost myself for years because I was just trying to be like everybody else, to be accepted within a community and trying to do the right things. And I lost the authenticity that was me in certain areas of my life. And that's what I've been fighting to regain for the last few years. So it is a powerful tool of self-growth, and we can use it mindfully and intentionally. We can identify patterns with it. We can develop empathy. We can improve our communication, and we can build self-confidence too by mirroring. We will feel more connected to others, and this can develop that greater self-confidence for us. But like I said, there can be negative things that can happen when we are doing excessive mirroring. Okay, so I've been talking about like a lot of like the mannerisms and things like that, but there's also something that we can do called energy mirroring. And so that's been something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, because I've been around people that have like a certain energy about them. And I have noticed that I have mirrored a lot of that energy, and it's put me in a really good place. It's been very helpful for me. And so I want to touch on what energy mirroring is and why, again, it can be very beneficial, but there also can be negative consequences for it. Like everything in life, there can be negatives when we do something, when something is done to excess, and it becomes like unhealthy. So mirroring energy is that process of aligning our energy with that of someone else, another person or entity. And this is done both consciously and unconsciously. Just like when we're talking about mannerisms and mirroring personalities, we can do this both consciously and unconsciously. And this can have a significant impact on our interactions and our relationships, and our authenticity, again, of ourself. And so there are a couple key aspects of mirroring energetically. The first thing is emotional alignment. So when we're talking about emotional alignment, we're talking about you're mirroring someone else's energy and you're essentially tuning into their emotional state. This is what like empathic people, this is what they do. And again, this is something that can be consciously and unconscious. I had an experience this past week where it was a very strong experience where I tuned into someone's emotional energy in a way that absolutely negatively impacted me. And I was kind of put in a very negative emotional state where I was literally feeling their feelings that they were ignoring. They were ignoring these emotional feelings. They had them all walled up, and I ended up feeling them for them. And it was the kind of relationship where I could express this to them and they understood it, and they accepted it. And it actually helped them to tap into those emotions that they were kind of ignoring and blocking and not feeling for themselves. I felt that energy, and it was a good thing ultimately, even though it set me back and used some of my spoons. It helped them to be able to recognize where they were blocking their own emotions, and they were able to open up in a way to process some emotions that they were ignoring. So we can definitely emotionally align ourselves, and others can emotionally align with us. So that's why it's really important for us, like in this case, this example I gave you, for us to be able to recognize and have awareness of the emotions that we carry. And even if we're not feeling them or processing through them, acknowledging them, someone else can and probably will. This is what I'm talking about with emotional mirroring. So I mirrored those emotions that this person was having that they were ignoring, and they were able to then see them and then experience them for themselves and process through them in order to release and shift some wounds and heal some wounds that were inside of them. It shifted some energy for them in a good, positive way. And I was able to be a part of that, which was pretty cool in the long run. And then I had to recover as well. This is the danger of being an empath sometimes. So we have to be able to know how to regulate that as well, and what all that means. And then I think there's another positive aspect of this is that we can resonate with other people's resonance. When we resonate with another person, with another person's energy specifically, we create this harmonious connection with that person. This can lead to feelings of understanding, acceptance, and belonging. This is what happens oftentimes in groups with people when we are talking about when people leave like a community or an organization, or they feel like they've been disbanded or told they can never be a part of something, shunned is another way to say it, I guess you could say. This is what happens when we realign with another community. This is where the energy, that resonance energy, can be felt with someone, and then acceptance and belonging can feel good when we're with this new people group. This can happen with groups. It can also happen with individuals. When we find ourselves out of a relationship, we oftentimes want to find something else, another relationship, to replace that, because we want to have that another relationship because something is missing. And so it's very easy then we can find ourselves, when we are mirroring other people's energy, we then will find acceptance with that person and belonging. So we have to be very careful what energy we are mirroring with other people, so that we find acceptance. This is where the dangers can come in sometimes. But ultimately, it can be a very positive experience, especially when you're talking about like heartbreak and you're talking about being hurt by a community or an organization. We can then find another community through resonating with a new community and feeling accepted and like you belong. It's a really good feeling when you've been in that place of not being accepted. And influence is another major thing that happens when we are energetically mirroring someone or someone is energetically mirroring us. Mirroring energy, it's a tool for influence, rather, I guess you could say. And when we align our energy with another person, we can create this sense of rapport. We can create trust, and it can be manipulated, which is, part of the danger of it. And we make it easier to persuade someone to motivate them. So we can pick up people's, mannerisms and emulate their energy and mirror their energy of how they hold themselves. And this will make them feel like, you're one of them or they're one of you and that there's something in common, and this can persuade. They talk about this in sales quite a bit. And it is, I hate to say it, but it is a manipulation tactic. But it's also a way that we can learn from one another. And so how do we do this? How do we mirror energy? One of the ways we do this is we observe. We have to pay attention to the person's body language, their tone of voice, and just their overall demeanor, really. And then we feel it. We try to sense their emotional state and connect with that person, that energy in a deeper level. And then we just align. We adjust our own energy to match theirs. And some people are really, really good at this. And it can be really scary. And like I said, some of the benefits are that we improve our relationships and we enhance our empathy and we increase our influence. But it's really important for us to understand that mirroring energy needs to be done with respect and with intention. It's not about manipulation and control, but it's about creating a deeper level of connection and understanding with other people. When you, again, using the example, I'm from the North, when I moved to the South, I started using some of the vernacular and matching energy with a lot of the women around here, specifically just people in general. And when I did that is where I find myself more accepted. And so sometimes mirroring that energy is a good thing because it does help you get your foot in the door, with people sometimes. But we don't want to use it for manipulation. And again, we want to use it for our own growth and for our own good and for ultimately the good of humanity. Again, it's not for manipulation and it's for understanding other people better. The problem is when we mirror for validation, which is what I've been kind of talking about and talking circles around really, is we don't want to mirror for validation. We don't want to have that excessive conformity that we will find ourselves falling into when we start to mirror. And we have that lack of authenticity when we start mirroring others in a way that is just unhealthy and we're not really ourselves and we lose part of ourselves and we don't end up loving our whole self. We end up loving parts of ourselves or acknowledging parts of ourselves or living out parts of ourselves that really aren't us. Now these things can become us. We can change, we can evolve, and that's wonderful. But the problem is when we feel like we have to mirror certain things in order to be accepted. And that's where that lack of authenticity comes. And then there's that fear of rejection. And that is something that I have really been dealing with the last 2 years probably, and I have been healing from, is that there's this fear of rejection. And here's the thing is that when we don't emulate and do the things that people expect of us, you're going to have rejection. When we're not mirroring exactly like other people or what is expected, you're going to be rejected, plain and simple. And I think that's where our resilience has to come in, and we have to understand that when we mirror and then we stop mirroring, there's going to be fallout. There's going to be fallout. So that's why we have to make sure that we're mirroring in healthy ways, in ways that can be maintained and ways that are for our own good and the good of others. And oftentimes when we're mirroring someone, because we don't feel good enough about ourselves. And so it comes from low self-esteem, and it just ends up perpetuating low self-esteem and the lack of care and self-care and self-love for ourselves as we are in our own unique way. So we don't ever want to excessively mirror a person or a group of people for unhealthy reasons, for replacing a part of ourselves. Okay, so let me think, is there anything else? How do we overcome mirroring for validation then? I think something that's really important is to have self-reflection, taking self-reflection time, and recognize what patterns we actually are mirroring and what patterns we're mirroring for validation. Pay attention to our thoughts, our feelings, and behaviors, and reflect on them. And then understand our motivations of why we're doing it. Are we trying to avoid that rejection? Are we seeking approval? Why is it we are doing this? And then we have to build our self-esteem. We have to actively do things to affirm ourselves and build our own self-esteem. So we have to have positive affirmations, practice that positive talk about ourselves and the things that maybe we were trying to cover or get rid of by emulating and mirroring someone else. And we have to celebrate our own achievements and set realistic goals for ourselves. This is how we build self-esteem so that we're living our lives authentically and not mirroring someone else for validation. And part of that is developing that authenticity. And we develop authenticity by expressing ourselves in the way that we need to express our thoughts and our feelings in an honest way. We can be honest and still be kind. We can be honest and still be respectful. We can be honest and still love ourselves and accept others and accept other perspectives. We don't have to just say, this is my truth and that's it. And I'm not accepting anybody else's. We can still listen to others and accept others, and express ourselves in a way that is truthful and honest and real and authentic. We need to practice assertiveness. This is difficult for a lot of people because it can lead into confrontation. And so when we don't like confrontation, we tend to not stand up for ourselves and our own beliefs. And then there's those who the pendulum swings the other way and they enjoy confrontation and they're going to be asserting themselves all the way. It's finding that balance. Again, we can be kind and still be assertive. We can be kind and still be respectful. And we have to explore our own interests. That's how we develop our own authenticity. We have to try new things and we have to be willing to fail. And we have to be willing to say, no, that's not for me. So my youngest son wanted to do baseball. His older brothers, who are 18 and 13, have played baseball most of their lives, and he wanted to try it because that's what they do. And baseball is really not for him. But you know what? We signed him up for this after school martial arts thing. And he went to it yesterday, the first session, and I asked him if he liked it. And he told me, Mom, no, I don't like it. I love it. I love martial arts. And he really felt like this was a thing for him. Now, it was just the first one, so, the novelty of it. There's going to be challenges with it. We're going to try it out. There's still 3 more sessions for this after school program, and we're going to let him try it and see if it's something that he really enjoys. And then we can move forward doing something else. But he had to try something and fail. He had to try the baseball and fail at it and realize it's really not for me. I don't really enjoy it. And we're going to try something else. So we have to explore our own interests. And we always need to seek support. I think that's another big thing, is that when we are trying to break mirroring for validation, we can connect with others in a way that allows us to be with people who support us as we really truly are. And this means sometimes getting professional support through coaching or through a therapist and counseling. We might need that because perhaps we've been mirroring others for so long that we need someone else to help us find ourselves. And that's okay. I've done this. I have done this. I've gone through therapy for this exact thing, and go through coaching for it as well. It's very helpful. And then practicing mindfulness always and challenging our negative thoughts are 2 big things that we can do. We've talked a lot about this to be able to be more authentic ourselves and bring more awareness to who we really are and not mirror others for validation. Okay, so your bold challenge. Your bold challenge today is to ask yourself the question, am I mirroring others for rapport and empathy and all those things? Or am I mirroring for manipulation or for validation? And am I willing to make some changes so that I can be my more authentic self? Am I truly being my most authentic self, or am I afraid of rejection? And that's why I'm mirroring. That's a hard question. If you need more support with this, if you would like to talk this through, if you would like to just have someone to listen, or you need someone to help coach you through the steps to be able to stop mirroring, please DM me. You can DM me, or you can go to my website at BriannaLGeorge.com and schedule a Bold Beginnings coaching session with me. All right, guys, have a fantastic